welcome to your trades the week ahead. A tempered week, so to speak, down about 0.5% at a close below the 58.50 mark on Friday.
Yeah, and hoping for better global cues as well, because that's what led the index down. But interesting week of trade because lots of action, not just in the large caps, but in the mid caps as well.
Oh yes, while the Nifty Junior held out about 1.5%, it was the broader markets as well as the frontline index which were a little tempered. So down about 0.5% pretty much across the board for the Nifty, the Sensex, the mid and the small cap index. Metals held out and a stupendous rally at that, a 4.6% gain coming in with names like Tata Steel, Hindalco, JSPL, Cesargoa, all holding out in trade. And you had IT as well, which looked pretty okay. So was the case with auto as well as the healthcare index. On the flip side, losses coming in for cap goods, consumer durables, which lost about 2%, FMCG, oil and gas as well as realty. So JP Associates, KN, L&T, Ambuja, Siemens, HDFC, ITC, Axis and BPCL all lost. And it was the Bank Nifty indeed, which was a big dampener as well. So down about 0.8% for the Bank Nifty as well over the week.
Yeah, lots of mid-caps in action too. There were a few gainers, mind you. So the Amtech twins, Amtech Auto and Amtech India, had a fairly decent run-up this week. Double-digit gains coming in for both of those. DB Realty didn't have a bad week either. So while Friday was a bit tempered for the entire real estate space, for the week as a whole, DB Realty gaining close to 12%. And surprise, surprise, TVS Motors clocked in healthy gains this time around. This week at least, so 8.5% higher for a TVS Motors. The losers included stocks like Jyoti Labs, Balrampur Chini, which has been decimated out of shape the last few sessions. It's been the worst 2 weeks for a Balrampur Chini, and SKS Microfinance amongst the others, which fell as sharply as it rose. Of course, there were a couple of stocks in news as well, the likes of an IRB Infra, which didn't have the best of weeks. On the flip side, a couple of stocks like a Gujarat Apollo Equipment or a Strides Arco Lab had a fairly decent week to go by and clocked in some decent gains for themselves. So let's get in a word from our experts on what to do with the markets and some of the individual movers in trade as well. Joining us today, Sandeep Wagle, founder and MD of Aptar Technical Advisory Services, as well as Dr. C.K. Narayan of Growth Avenue Asset Advisors. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining in. Dr. Narayan, a tempered week, but the global cues also looked a bit shaky on Friday's session at least. What do you do with the index? Would you buy on dips, or would you believe that this slight downside can actually extend itself next week?
Well, I think it's going to be a bit of everything that you have said right now. The kind of reaction that we have had is largely owing to some sort of cues from overseas, no doubt. But overseas cues, unless they, are very, very persistent, they do not really have long-lasting impact on our markets. They are largely there for a day or two. So I think the fact that it came towards the end of the week and in a week when there was a lot of gains for most of the traders led to some fair-sized profit booking across the board, which is what led the index down. So we have come down to the 58.50 mark where there is some first level of support, previous dips, gaps, etc. And if we were to maybe start up on a weak note in the coming week, then maybe we can dip down to about 57.50 where the logical support is, and I see that as being a much stronger level of support, and therefore I wouldn't really be looking for the market to drop down any significantly lesser than 57.50. So if it were to go down to those levels with a stop loss of about 40-50 points, I would actually venture forth with a fresh buy. So yes, to answer your question, there is a little bit of room on the downside to the tune of about 100 points if we were to, let's say, begin the week a little on a soft note.
Right. Okay, that's the take coming in from C.K. Narayan on the index, which closed below that 58.50 mark. But the one pocket which shone really well was indeed the entire metal space, with the BSE metal index itself putting on about 4.6% in the green. Sandeep, what is your take on metals? Does it seem like the strength across the metals basket could continue, and what would be your favorite pick amongst the sector?
Well, yes, Ayesha, I would agree with you. The strength in the metal space is likely to be continue. A Tata Steel, a JSW Steel, these two are the best picks in this sector. But then if the market drops down by 100 points, you can't rule out a Tata Steel moving from 430 to 420, 415, where it can be bought, so on and so forth. So some correction, yes, but I think metals is still looking one of the best sectors, showing a lot of strength. And I agree with Dr. Narayan that I don't see a fall beyond 80 to 100 points. I mean, 100 points also is a little too much. I would cap it at 60 to 80 points. And I think we will see buying. But on the other hand, at the higher side, 59.50, 59.30, that range is also a strong resistance. So I don't see that also being broken. So broadly, I would talk of the indices or the Nifty as being sideways in a band of 100 points, and 58.50 will be a very, very strong support. 57.50, 57.80, and 59.30 will be a very strong resistance.
Which one of the two do you like, Federal or Karnataka Bank?
Ayesha, if you give me a choice, a very clear answer is Federal Bank. Karnataka Bank has been displaying some weakness over the past few days. Not to say that in the long term it is weak. At lower levels, I don't see Karnataka Bank dropping down below 150. But at this point in time, talk of the daily and the weekly charts, I would clearly go with the Federal Bank. And once above 530 or so, I think this stock can really zoom up to 560, 565. So I'd be comfortable buying this stock in the range of current price of 518 to possibly 510. Below 500 can be a good stop loss, and I would play for a few weeks target of around 560 to 565.
Yeah, the other newsmaker of the week was DLF. And for probably the right reasons, because they are getting into that mode wherein they are selling off some key assets in order to deleverage, non-core assets rather, in order to deleverage. It was the Lower Parel property earlier, now the sale of Aman Resorts, and while it didn't happen at the valuations that the market was expecting, but it held out well for the stock. The real estate basket for otherwise, most of the other mid-cap real estate stocks fell quite a bit. 2119, Sandeep, on a DLF, 1% higher in trade. What do you recommend here? Because the real estate basket as a whole came down in Friday's trade.
DLF also did witness some resistance near 226, 227, and I find that is a very strong resistance for DLF. I don't think 227, 228 will be that easy for it to cross. On the other hand, I don't see 207. I see 207 as a strong support, which will also not be broken. So 207 to 227, this 20-point band is where I see DLF in, at least in the coming week or two.
Lots of action in the mid-cap space as well. Lots of movers and shakers, some with news, some without news. Navneet is here to highlight the top 2 or 3 mid-cap movers, whether by price or by the news flow. Navneet, tell us.
Well, there were a lot of mid-cap stocks which were in focus during the week, and starting off with Honeywell Automation, a company which completed its offer for sale on December 14. Good response coming in there for the issue. Well, the issue was subscribed by almost 7.4 times, and if you look at the floor price, it was 2150, whereas the indicative price came at around over 2300 rupees per share. And because of the good response, you saw the stock surging almost 13% during the week. And if you look at the issue, Reliance Mutual Fund bought almost 97% of the offer for sale issue. And moving on to IRB Infras, with the stock which fell sharply during the week, almost 8%, after some media reports indicated that CBI has found some evidence against the company. Also, the stock was under pressure as the promoters released their pledge shares almost to the tune of about 4.3 million shares. That was the other reason because of which the stock remained under pressure during the week, falling 8%. And lastly, it was MCX and Financial Technologies which were in focus, essentially because SEBI gave the commencement certificate to MCX SX, which is the equity platform for the company. Well, the exchange will go live with the new products. The date has not yet come, but we are hearing that the exchange would soon be announcing their launch date, which could be anywhere in the month of January. And if you look at the applications, total 434 applications were submitted to SEBI, out of which SEBI has approved almost 100 applications, and the exchange has said the remaining applications will soon be approved as well, because of which both these counters were in focus, and they will remain to be in focus in the coming weeks as well.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Navneet. So some key stocks to watch out for. Sandeep, come to you first on an FT and an MCX, particularly Financial Technologies, which Navneet highlighted. It's had an iffy run, but the last 2 or 3 days showed a bit of an uptrend.
Well, yesterday we had a buy on this stock, Neeraj, at a level of around 1195 to 1095 to 1100, and our target was 1130, and which I felt we will go to 1160, but today that has not happened. And that, if you ask me now, I would buy it on a decline. I'll be more comfortable buying on a level of 1070, 1050. I see those levels coming in at a level of 1090. So I'll not be in that great a hurry to buy this stock. I see more sideways movement and possibly 2 or 3% correction from the current levels.
Sandeep, what about the aviation pack? Anything that you're liking out of there?
Well, there is only one stock which I have been liking in the aviation pack, and that is Jet Airways. And the way it has fallen today, I would wait and watch because it has come to a very strong support level. In case the Nifty gives way, we may see Jet at 520, 530 levels. So I would not be in a hurry to buy this stock. Maybe 520, 515, 500, that level, I'll be comfortable buying this stock.
A couple of other stocks should be brought up, and particularly in Friday's session, it was very weak for stocks like Voltas. Mind you, we heard lots of talk about how the cooling solution companies will have a lot of problems in the domestic order book, and even companies like Voltas have now started to do that, focus a lot more on the domestic book, and which is why there was pressure on Blue Star, on a Voltas, particularly in Friday's session. They didn't do too well in this space. So while cap goods remains a bit sketchy, particularly for this segment, there seem to be some problems. At least that's what the brokerage views seem to be suggesting. Sandeep, the most liquid one out of them, of Voltas, has corrected a bit and in Friday's session went down further. Is there a trade here on Monday morning?
Neeraj, if it breaks 101, which is the swing low, currently it is closed at 104, 104.50. I see major weakness to the tune of 10 to 12%. So if I'm holding this stock in delivery, I would use every rally kind of a 3, 4, 5 rupees up move to sell it. But if I'm trading in FNO and want to go short in futures, I would sell it below 100 and play for a target of 91, 92. Play for that 10%, but only below 100.
Couple of other stocks, in fact 2 or 3 stocks, so a couple of stocks which had a good run, the likes of a DB Realty, the likes of a TVS Motors. Both of these for this week had a fairly decent run, while mid-cap real estate didn't do as much in Friday's session. DB and down 4% in Friday's trade. If you pull up the week's chart, DB Realty had a splendid run, 12% higher for the week. TVS Motors similarly, almost double-digit gains coming in. And quite converse, the kind of moves that Balrampur Chini made, that one was decimated, 8% lower in the session. Sandeep, I'm guessing a trade is probably possible on a TVS Motors, but just wanted a view on the two gainers, which is DB and TVS Motors. Considering that the market is looking a bit iffy, would you initiate any kind of long positions here?
Neeraj, if the Nifty finds support 50-70 points down and it starts moving up, or even the fall halts, I would consider a trade in a TVS Motors, possibly even a DB Realty and Amtech India. I mean, all of these stocks, the weekly patterns are excellent. I don't see a correction more than a 2 to 3 to 4%, and I would buy into them for a 10, 12, 15% upside over the next week or so.
A couple of stocks on which there were some initiating coverage reports as well that came out, particularly from the hospital space. So Apollo Hospitals and Fortis Healthcare, wherein Barclays came out with reports. They've initiated coverage with an overweight rating. On Apollo, they have a target of 968 rupees. And on a Fortis Healthcare, they have a target price of 156. And Fortis, well, a lot of technical experts did mention that because of the sale of that asset and the money coming in, it just broke out of a long-term range that it used to be in, and that probably is a bit of a positive. After a long time, some positive news coming in on Fortis there. Sandeep, how do you map the charts of a Fortis Healthcare? Because it was trading in this 110 kind of, 105 to 112, 113 kind of a range for a really long time. After a while, it's gone up a bit, broke those 115, 116 kind of levels. Is there a trade here? If not for the immediate week, then maybe for the next 2-3 weeks.
Neeraj, there is a trade. It gave a breakout at 112, 113 levels. I fully agree with you. But I see a limited upside. I mean, I would talk of a upside to the tune of 125 or so. So if you're buying into it at 114, maybe down to 110, 10-12 rupees, which is a trading upside of 8 to 10% is what I would talk of. Long term, I would still want to wait. The weekly, monthly patterns are still not clear. Specifically nearer 125, 128, this stock will meet with a lot of resistance, and I don't think it will be that easy for it to break and go to 160, 170 talk of the next few months. So I don't have that view. 125 to 130, yes, so that would be a trading upside.